In a slum area of Sci-fi, there is a young mother named Sukhantai. She was in need of money and she was going to sell the property she had, but nothing works, so she decided to sell her son named Budhia Singh to a traveling bracelet dealer for $10. She ordered the bracelet dealer to take care of and train Budhia to work. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the community is holding a demonstration to reject the eviction of their settlement. On the other hand, a man named Barenchi Das, who works as a judo coach, was immediately told by several people to deal with the demonstrators. There, he then told the demonstrators that if the residents whose houses were evicted, they would receive compensation and permanent houses would be built. Hearing Barenchi's words, of course the demonstrators did not immediately believe it, but luckily he was able to convince the demonstrators so that the riots could be resolved. After that, Barenchi went to a slum which turned out to be Sukhanti's house complex. There he also took the time to visit Sukhanti's house. Sukhanti told Barenchi that the roof of her house was leaking and there was no clean water supply. Hearing this, he promised to help her house to be repaired. After that, he asked the whereabouts of Budhia, but Sukhanti just silent. Meanwhile, Budhia's condition was very worrying. He was starving, he was not fed by the bracelet dealer and was instead beaten, but Budhia dared to retaliate by throwing a bottle to him and immediately hiding. But damn, Budhia was again caught and beaten until he cried. Soon after that, Barenchi comes to save him. The bracelet dealer refused because he felt he had bought Budhia. Finally, Barenchi replaces the bracelet dealer's money to free Budhia and says he will beat him if he dares to touch Budhia again. The next day, Barenchi's wife, Geeta, tells her husband that she wants to have a biological child. Jokingly, he said if Geeta already had many children. One day, Barenchi joins the Success Team, an opposition party leader who will run for governor named Putanik. In his campaign, Putanik promised to rebuild the houses of the evicted residents permanently. It certainly immediately received a good response from the community, so that Putanik was immediately proud. And at night, Putanik gives money to Barenchi for helping his campaign. After that, Barenchi visited Budhia, who was being treated in hospital due to a beating from a bracelet dealer. After recovering, Barenchi took Budhia to his mother, but Sukhanti wants Budhia to live with him because she doesn't have the money to support Budhia's life. When he get home, Geeta rejected if Budhia lived in their house because they had taken care of 22 orphans, but after seeing Budhia's innocence, she became melted and accepted him to live in their house. In the morning, as usual, the children got up to do activity. One child tries to wake Budhia, but he found Budhia was wetting on the bed. This made he get bullied by that child. Do not accept being bullied. Budhia then pushed him till he fall. For his actions, Barenchi punishes Budhia to run around the field and he don't allow to stop until Barenchi tells him to stop. He and his wife then left to take care of their business for hours and forgot about Budhia. When home, one of their children said that since morning Budhia had run and would not stop. Hearing this, Barenchi and Geeta panicked. They immediately checked Budhia's condition, but he didn't get tired and laughed instead. At night, he was watching the marathon broadcast on TV. There he thought of Budhia in the field of running. The next day, he invites Budhia for a morning run. They then ran together and from there they became closer. He said that he likes to run. After running, Barenchi takes Budhia to his personal doctor. Barenchi says that Budhia has already run 5 kilometers. It is something very extraordinary, considering Budhia's age. He was only 5 years old. After the doctor checked his condition, it turned out that Budhia's condition was fine. As a reward for Budhia's achievements, Barenchi gives him new shoes. And to make the other children are not jealous, Geeta then gives them a sweets. After knowing the talent possessed by Budhia, Barenchi became more focused in guiding Budhia. He even promised Budhia a bicycle if he was excited to train with him. Next, at Bhubaneswar police birthday party, Barenchi asked Putanik for help so that Budhia could appear on the show. With Putanik's help, finally Budhia was able to appear on the show and show his talent for running in front of many people for 7 rounds. Even without drinking water, Budhia managed to complete 7 rounds. Then for his achievements, Budhia flooded with praise. Then Barenchi intends to send Budhia to the best private school in the city by applying for an athlete scholarship, but Budhia was not accepted because his old was still not enough. But Barenchi did not give up. He asked Putanik for help so that Budhia could study at that school. With the help of Putanik, finally Budhia can go to school. After that, Budhia continued to practice running with enthusiasm, starting from a distance of 5 kilometers, 21 kilometers, 25 kilometers, 30 kilometers, and continued to grow until it reached 48 kilometers. Along with how hard Budhia practiced, until the shoe has a hole. Then Budhia's rare talent was smelled by the national newspapers. It has become a topic of discussion among various parties, because according to some circles it is an act of exploitation, considering that Budhia is only 5.5 years old. Budhia's achievements have become the pride of the people of Bhubaneswar. Barenchi then presents him with new shoes. Not only that, Putanik also gave Budhia a bicycle as a gift. He also promised to sponsor him. Next, Barenchi held a religious ceremony to adopt Budhia as a child, and since then Budhia has been legally the son of Barenchi. Sometime later, Geeta gave birth to a son named Mohit. One day Barenchi and Geeta were visited by a journalist from America who wanted to make a documentary about them. There Geeta shows the medals they got when they were judo athletes. Next, Barenchi intends to register Budhia to take part in the 21-kilometer marathon in Delhi. However, the committee did not allow him to participate in the competition because Budhia was not yet 12 years old. As a result, one of Budhia's sponsors gets angry with him and says if he loses sponsoring a useless child. Hearing this, this, Barenchi became angry and the dispute that occurred became a trend in the news. On the other hand, the Ministry of Child Protection also spoke and said that Barenchi was just trying to be famous and looking for sensations. And on the other hand, Barenchi also held a press conference on the citizens of Bubanzwar. In the event, he said if Budia would break a new record, where he will run a marathon as far as 70 kilometers starting from the city of Puri to Bubanzwar. Hearing that, the reporters asked about Barenchi's plan, because it is an impossible thing and very risky. Moreover, Budia is not even 6 years old. Some parties objected to the plan, because it was too risky for a child of Budia's age. Geeta also tried to persuade her husband to cancel the event, but he persisted to hold the event. Further, thanks to Putanik's help, finally the event got permission from the police and there were 400 people who were willing to run with Budia. On the other hand, Sukanti, who now has a boyfriend, saw a billboard about Budia who was going to run a 70-kilometer marathon. Sukanti's boyfriend used this to attract donations to residents under the guise of running the Budia marathon. After getting permission, various preparations were then made for the Buddhist marathon. The day before implementation, the Minister of Child Protection contacted the police to conduct a doping test on Budia. Luckily, he's tested negative. And finally, the day of the Budia marathon arrived. Thousands of people have gathered in the Jagannath temple complex to enliven the event. The priests also prayed for Budia so that he would be given smoothness and safety. Exactly at 4:30 a.m., Budia started from the Jagannath temple complex accompanied by hundreds of people. Not only that, Budia was also escorted by several police, medical teams, and journalists who also took part in capturing the event. Everyone who knew Budia cheered him on and watched on television. On the other hand, the Ministry of Child Protection and the Child Protection Commission are increasingly angry with the event because it is considered an act of exploitation of children. On the third day of running a marathon, Budia began to feel tired and thirsty until he hallucinated with his favorite iced drink. But Barenchi still doesn't give Budia a drink. It made Geeta, who was watching from television, feel disappointed with her husband. After a long run, Budia finally arrived at the entrance of the city of Bubanzwar and needed 5 kilometers again to the finish line. But suddenly Budia fainted from dehydration. Therefore, Budia immediately received emergency assistance from the medical team. The incident immediately became viral news, and not a few people also criticized the action because it is considered to have exceeded the limit, where a child who is only 6 years old ran as far as 65 kilometers. After Budia received treatment, he then came to his senses and in front of many people he said if he wasn't tired and would run 100 kilometers. Next, Barenchi and the residents of Bubanzwar celebrated Budia's success in breaking the record by running a distance of 65 kilometers. On the other hand, the Ministry and the Child Protection Commission, who did not like this, asked the police to pick up Budia from Barenchi's house. In the morning, the Minister of Child Protection conveyed to the media the results of Budia's examination at the hospital. Doctors diagnosed Budia with anemia, malnutrition, and an abnormal heart rate. Therefore, the government forbade Budia to run a marathon until he was 12 years old, and if violated, the organizers and Barenchi as coaches will get criminal penalties. But the minister's statement was opposed by various parties, including the personal Dr. Barenchi who had been handling Budia's health. He said the statement could not be accounted for because he knew Budia's condition, as well as Putanik, who appealed to the government to support and facilitate Budia's talent. Because of this action, the community then staged a demonstration in front of the offices of the Ministry and the Child Protection Commission. There they asked the Ministry to lift the ban on running against Budia. Following up on demonstrators' requests, the government held a consultation meeting. However, what was discussed in the meeting did not discuss solutions to Budia's problems, but instead the main minister wants his party to win so that it can maintain power and continue to engage in corruption. The other side, Barenchi was also accused of exploiting children and embezzling donations collected from the community for Budia by the head of the Child Protection Commission. But it was Barenchi who felt he didn't do that, went straight to the chairperson of the Child Protection Commission and beat him up. Then Sukanti asks for Barenchi's promise to repair the house. There he says he will help Sukanti if he has money. After that, Budia was brought home by Sukanti, but Barenchi instead accused her and her boyfriend of reporting him to the police on charges of embezzlement of funds and torture of Budia. But in the end, he was released after Barenchi's post-mortem, and Barenchi's balance was only a few tens of dollars and not what he was charged for. Then the government took over Budia from Barenchi and also from Sukanti. Budia was then placed in the government-owned athlete house and was not allowed to run until the age of 12. Knowing that, Barenchi was disillusioned with the actions taken by the government, and under the pouring rain he cried over what had happened. A few days later, Barenchi visited Budia at the government-owned athlete house. There it is seen that they miss each other. When he will to leave, Budia forbids him and asks Barenchi to accompany him a little longer, but the government-owned athlete house guard only gave him a few minutes. On New Year's Eve, Barenchi celebrates New Year's Eve with his family and foster children happily, and it is inversely proportional to the condition of Budia, who feels lonely. And that night there was someone who wanted to meet Barenchi, but suddenly that mysterious person shoots him to death. The news of Barenchi's death from being shot by an unknown person shocked many and became a trending topic. And on Barenchi's funeral day, everyone looked sad and lost, including Budia, who was also crying.